All right, so in this chapter we've dealt with several different forms of quadratic equations. The first form is standard form. Okay, and so when I give you something in standard form and ask you information about it, okay, so let's say here is the equation that you're given, and you want to find some information about this graph. Okay, which way does this graph open? Up. Okay, so you shouldn't need a calculator to answer that question. Okay. What if I asked you for the vertex of this? Okay. When you're looking at this, is the vertex going to be a maximum point or a minimum point? Think about what the graph looks like. If it opens up, that means it's going to look like this. So the vertex is going to be a minimum. So if you can think about that. Okay, and then so we can't just identify this without having to do something. So we'll use our calculator to check the vertex. Okay, you can do it by hand, and I've already gone through that. Okay, in addition to the vertex, we have the axis of symmetry. And that's always going to be the form x equals, and then it's whatever the x-coordinate of our vertex is, correct? That's going to be our axis of symmetry. So we'll wait on this. When we find the vertex, we'll be able to find that. And then the final piece of information I'm probably going to ask you regarding standard form is, what is the y-intercept? Okay, so if you're looking for the y-intercept, you always know this portion of it. In a y-intercept, you're always going to have an x-coordinate of 0. And the nice thing is, in standard form, it gives it to you, right? Standard form, the y-intercept is simply the constant. So we know this one we can answer without having to do anything else. Okay? So we can identify which way it opens and the y-intercept just looking at the graph, or the equation, and then we can use our TI-89s to graph it and figure out the vertex and axis of symmetry pretty easily. Okay? So if we're going to use our TI-89s for this, so we want to graph this function. So the way that we would do that is we go to our y-editor. And we're going to enter this equation directly in our y-editor. So green diamond F1. And we can type our equation exactly as it appears. You don't need to change the form of these unless it, for some reason, isn't written in this standard form. But we can just enter our equation exactly as it appears. And then we can view the graph. Okay, now, two things will happen. One of two things will happen. Either the graph will fit in the window. If that's the case, you can move on and you can answer these questions. Okay, but if the graph doesn't fit, what you need to do is adjust the window settings. And we've done this before, right? You guys know what I mean when I refer to that. Okay, if the graph doesn't fit, let's take a look and see if this graph does. So hit green diamond F3. So we're going to test our graph. In order to see whether it fits, you need to be able to see the entire vertex. So do we see the vertex in this? Yeah, so the graph fits this window. We can move on. If it doesn't, what we would have to do is hit green diamond F2 and change these window settings. We'd have to either move our x's over to the left or right, or move our y's down. And you can scale it differently if you need to. But as long as you can view the entire vertex, you're good. Okay, and if that's the case, you can move on to this next step, which is to access the F5, the math tab. And what do you notice one of the words is there? Even higher than that. Our vertex is a minimum. Okay? So when we look here, we can calculate the minimum using this command. Again, all you need to do is choose the lower and upper bound for your x values. So you need to pick an x coordinate that falls to the left of our vertex. And it doesn't matter what you pick. Could we choose 0 right here? Yeah, we could just hit enter. Our cursor is already there, so we could just hit enter on this. If you just want to make sure you use the furthest to the left and the furthest to the right, you could also type in -10 as your lower bound and your upper bound. Again, anything that's to the right of the vertex will guarantee that it finds this for you. But if you were to put the number 2, it would not find the correct information for you. So you'd have to, again, the easiest thing is just use the most extreme boundary for your x's, which we have is 10. Okay, and so now it'll calculate my minimum between those, and it identifies it right here as 3.5. And it tells you the corresponding y-coordinate as well, -2.25. So there's my answer for the vertex. It actually found the vertex for me. And then you just use what you know. The axis of symmetry in a parabola is going to be a vertical line that passes through your vertex. So it's just going to be x equals whatever that x coordinate was. Okay, and so you should be able to answer all your questions with just that one simple calculation. The F5 Math tab, again, and then choose number 3, minimum. Okay, now you choose this one if the parabola opens up, and what would you choose if the parabola opens down? You'd use maximum if the parabola opens down. Okay, questions on finding this? Now, let's say I asked you for a specific value. You can again go into your Math tab, choose value, and if I said find the value when x is 10, you could just type in a 10, hit enter, and it'll solve that for you. And so you can evaluate your function in the graph as well. But this right here that's on the screen is pretty much what I'm going to be asking you on quiz or test questions about the graphs.